الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على سيد المرسلين سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. I was not fortunate enough to listen to what my brother Uthman has to say, so we might overlap with our discussion of the topic of this session. Now, I want to start by providing us with a general framework that hopefully will help us putting the Trump administration's approach and its envisioned solution of the so-called Palestine-Israel conflict in perspective. The first thing that I want to remind everyone here is that we're not talking about a conventional president. Trump is an unconventional president. His presidency is unconventional as well. He is a man with no prior political experience, a man who relies heavily on his intuition and instinct, and who relies as well on the advice of a small group of ideologues and lightweight political advisors. He also despises experts and institutions. He thinks he knows it all. Above all, Trump subscribes to a form of politics that is known as transactional politics. He's a businessman. So he gives priority to his own political gains and calculations, and he gives priority to his business interests. Therefore, his domestic and foreign policy are both chaotic. Evidence of that is the current partial government shutdown that flies on the face of his own party. Evidence of that is recent decision to pull troops, US troops, from Syria or northern Syria without consulting his own defense minister, his own national security team. He just made a decision over a phone call with President Erdogan, although he was advised against it, although he was advised to stand for the US troops in Syria. Now, I'm not advocating the American presence, nor I'm against it, I'm just describing here. He still went ahead with a tweet. Evident of that, another decision to reduce the number of American soldiers in Afghanistan. And the list will continue to go on. Also evident of that is his decision back in December 2017 to break with more than 70 years of an established American policy towards the so-called, again, Palestine-Israel conflict, when he decided to recognize Jerusalem as the capital of the State of Israel, and then he subsequently, in May of this year, he relocated the embassy into Jerusalem, and then the recent attempts of his administration to redefine the meaning and the status of the Palestinian refugees. Now, I would argue that we should not underestimate the danger Trump poses to the US and the danger he poses to the world order, including the danger that he poses to Palestine and the right of its people. We have to keep in mind that, after all, he is the President of the United States. And he owns the Republican Party. He enjoys the support of more than 89% of Republicans. Also, Congress is fully behind him. the two parties when it comes to Israel. And he has a very solid and faithful base that supports him regardless of what he says and what he does. And I would also argue that Trumpism is a sweeping current, not a person, nor an isolated phenomena. And the establishment here is not used to such a challenge. Now, I think everyone is following the news. You see how one after another either exiting or getting fired from his administration. Now, I'm not trying to be disrespectful, but his own former Secretary of State called him a moron. Also, the same thing was attributed to his outgoing Chief of Staff. Same thing was attributed to the outgoing Defense Minister. But still, he has a lot of power because he has this solid base behind him, because he enjoys the support of a major party, which is the Republican Party, that is beholden to him. They don't want to challenge him because they know what the consequences are. Senator Flake faced the brunt of Trump. He had to retire. Senator Corker also faced the brunt of Trump, and he has to retire. So they are unwilling, the Republican Party is unwilling to challenge him. And even if the establishment will come on top and will win against him in this internal struggle, still that doesn't mean that his policies and his decisions relevant to Palestine, Israel will be reversed. Because again, we have the two parties, a bipartisan support for his policy when it comes to Palestine, Israel. Moreover, the American Zionist lobby and Israel are fully aware of Trump's limitations and nature. They believe because of his limited intellectual capacity and because of his limited ability to understand the consequences of the decisions that he makes, and also due to the huge influence the evangelical community has over him and over his Vice President Mike Pence, they believe, Israel and the Israeli lobby in the US, they believe that they have a golden opportunity now to impose the parameters of a final political solution on the Palestinians and on the region. Add to that, the Arab situation is a total disgrace. Arabs are fragmented, busy with their internal battles. They have no vision, no project, no cause to rally around. For many of them, or the most influential among them, like Saudi Arabia and UAE, Egypt, for them Israel is an ally and Iran is the arch enemy. Now, I'm not saying that Iran is not an enemy in the sense of its policies in Syria. But you don't replace an enemy with an enemy. And Iran is not equivalent to Israel. But these regimes see Israel as the ally. And their animosity is not only waged on Iran, but also on any hope to have change, a democratic change in the Arab world. And if you look at the Palestinian political landscape, it's no better. It is also fragmented. Bickering is what dominates the internal relationship between, unfortunately we say now, the West Bank and Gaza, instead of saying occupied Palestine. And I think, again, every one of you is following the news that are coming from Palestine or occupied Palestine or the occupied West Bank. But this is not my topic today. Therefore, we should not underestimate the dangers that we are faced with from this administration. I know that there are many who argue that we shouldn't worry much. I mean, when did we ever have a US administration that was friendly to the Palestinians and to the Palestinian cause and the Palestinian rights? Even the Obama administration couldn't change a bit. So why should we worry? That's what many people argue. We've been through worse. In fact, I doubt that we have been through worse. The circumstances that we're living, that we're facing, are unprecedented. This combination of these factors are unprecedented. And yes, we have to be very worried that the Trump administration's quest to liquidate the Palestinian cause is a real danger. Now let me conclude this section with a general assessment that I want to make. I truly believe that it is not the Trump administration that is making the decision in relation to Palestine. I truly believe that the Trump administration is only channeling the policies of the Israeli right-wing coalition that is in power now, of course, before they called for the elections. The Trump administration is only channeling these policies that is coming from Tel Aviv. And they're channeling these policies through their accomplices in the US administration. Accomplices like Jared Kushner. Accomplices like Jason Greenblatt. Accomplices like David Friedman. These three individuals put Israel first, Israel second, Israel third, Israel last before the US, because the US is not on their agenda. I would argue that they have no allegiance, a true allegiance, a real allegiance to this country. Because what they're doing is to the detriment of the US national security and national interests. And they dare to question patriotism of any individual who will challenge them and who will call them out on their policies, destructive policies, like the policies that we see in Saudi Arabia by supporting a tyrant, a killer, an assassin like Mohammed bin Salman. Jared Kushner is proven now to exchange messages outside of diplomatic channels with Mohammed bin Salman. And definitely he does the same with Israel because his allegiance is to Israel. So the policies are being channeled through these people, while these individuals, with the support definitely of others, are trying to isolate Palestinians and Palestine from its Arabic depth. So the Palestinians now are being pressured as if like the PA needs anyone to pressure it. The Palestinian Authority are being pressured to accept the so-called deal of the century. I will come to it. The great empire of Bahrain, you know Bahrain. It's a kingdom. This small island acts like an empire. This great empire is chastising Arabs, the Arab League, because they condemned the Australian decision, the Australian government's decision to relocate their embassy from Tel Aviv to Jerusalem. UAE and Saudi Arabia have open channels now. They're not hiding it anymore. Jordan and Israel and Jordan and Egypt have long been, communicating and having diplomatic relations with Israel. And we have the PA that, despite many resolutions by the Central Council to abandon any so-called security coordination with Israel, none of them are fulfilled until today. But rather they brag about continuing the so-called security coordination or complacency, in fact. So if you look at the situation, if you look at the landscape in Palestine, in the Arab world, and you look at the landscape here in the United States, yes, we have to be worried. Now let's get a little bit touch on the so-called deal of the century. You know who called it the deal of the century? Sisi of Egypt. And then when he was asked about it a few months ago, he said he doesn't know what the deal of the century, he doesn't know where the name came from. I mean, either we have morons who are governing who are ruling us in the Arab world, or they're just professional liars. He's the one who said in 2017, called it the deal of the century. Just a few months ago, he said, I don't know what the deal of the century is. He doesn't know where the name came from. Well, it came from when you were meeting with Donald Trump at the White House. So, what is this deal of the century? Well, let me tell you how they're doing it first. What the Trump administration is doing, again, it's channeling the Israelis' policies, is that they're neutralizing what they call the obstacles to the Palestine-Israel negotiations. When Trump made his decision back in December 2017 to recognize Jerusalem and relocate the embassy, he claimed that he took Jerusalem off the table in order to help the negotiations to proceed. His argument that this is an obstacle, every time it comes to Jerusalem, they cannot agree. So it's better to remove it. Once we remove it, they will have a better chance to reach a peace. Why? Of course, you're taking the core and central issues that define the so-called final, or that falls within the so-called final status issues. You're removing from off the table, and now you're neutralizing them as if they don't exist. So what are we fighting about? Why do we have issues? What is our objective as Palestinians? What do we want? If we have no sovereignty, if you're taking it off the table, there is no two-state solution now, regardless of whether you support it or not. I'm just trying to speak from within an American framework. And if we are not fighting over Jerusalem, and if you redefine the status, the meaning and the status of refugees, where the descendants of the actual so-called refugees are not Palestinians, don't qualify to be Palestinians, so what are we fighting about if there is no right of return, no Jerusalem, no sovereignty, no borders? What are we then fighting about? What is Palestine is about? So the argument is, we neutralize these core and central issues, and then things will be easy. You know, instead of going uphill, go downhill. Of course, you'll be faster going downhill. But you will be going faster to your destruction and demise. So that's what we're dealing with now. Altering the final status issues, rendering issues such as Jerusalem and the right of return unnegotiable and moot, and giving Israel what it wants by liquidating our rights and liquidating the Palestinian cause. That's how they're trying to achieve the deal of the century, where we fight over imaginary borders. That's why Israel now is ramming up settlements construction within the major settlement blocks in the West Bank, as well in the Jerusalem region, including the area known as E1, which links Jerusalem with the settlement of Ma'ale Adumim, the largest Israeli settlement in the West Bank. And by that, they ensure that there will be no territorial contiguity in the West Bank. So meaning there is no contiguous territory to constitute a contiguous state in the West Bank. And of course, everyone knows that the West Bank now is separated from Gaza, or Gaza is separated from the West Bank. Now, I don't have a lot of time left. You know, I'll put the rest of the points aside because I think there is something more important for every one of us to know. You know, we can continue to analyze a situation, and we can reanalyze a situation, and we can overanalyze a situation, but this will take us nowhere. You know, if I ask any one of you to come on the stage and tell us what the deal of the century, you can, you know, just give a simple answer that will summarize everything. You know, they're liquidating the Palestinian rights. There is nothing to negotiate over, right? You don't need to be abundant or a political analyst. It's a very simple equation. But there is something that we can do. We're not powerless. But before we do something, we have to believe in our cause. And we have to believe in ourselves. And we have to believe in our abilities. And we have to believe in our mission. And we have to believe that we have a role, and we have to believe that we can achieve something. We're not spectators. Many people are unwilling to put their work, their money and their work where they put their tears and their words. We're not going to achieve anything like this. If we continue to be removed from the reality that we live in America, then we're not going to accomplish anything. You know, sometimes I think that our community needs a major shock. Mainly the Palestinian community needs a major shock to wake up from this nightmare that we live in the West Bank, and we live in Gaza, and we live in Lebanon, and we live in Jordan, and we live in Syria. We're not refugees in the Arab world or in Palestine. We are American citizens. We live here and we have a voice. And there is a lot that can be done. What we need to do is to translate this passion that we have for Palestine into action. Now, I'm not going to give you a list of items that everyone needs to do because I don't have the time. You have heard it before, and you can, but what I can do is to send you to the right address to do something, to find out for yourself, to educate yourself, and to invest in yourself. And when you invest in yourself, you invest in Palestine and in justice, not only in Palestine, not only in Syria, not only in Lebanon, not only in Libya, not only in Yemen, not only in Egypt, not only in Saudi Arabia and the UAE, not only in Burma, but also we can invest in justice here in America. Whether we like it or not, the matter of the fact is this is the most powerful country. And we have a voice. We're not foreigners in this country. Those who are arguing that real America is, that we have a dichotomy of real America as opposed to brown America, or that just by the mere fact that we have American passport doesn't mean that we're citizens. well, we have to prove them wrong. The Constitution doesn't stand on their side, and they're going to be proved wrong, and if we're going to win this. Not because we're the Muslim community, because that's what America is. It has been proven time and time again. But it is our time, it's our turn now to prove them wrong again. Those who want to divide us, those who want to continue to support these misguided, brutal policies that we have overseas, and even here at home, and even at our borders, the southern borders. We have a role. I represent the American Muslims for Palestine. It is one of our community organizations, an organization that is dedicated to work for Palestine, an organization that is main objective to provide you with a vehicle, with a tool to translate that passion you have for Palestine into action. This coming April, between April 5th and April 8th, we're holding our 5th annual Palestine Advocacy Day in Washington, D.C. at Capitol Hill. This year, April, which is about to end, we brought over 250 individuals from 26 states to Washington, D.C. We brought them, we trained them for 2 days. How to advocate, how to civically engage, how to be effective, how to speak to your representatives and your senators, how to speak to your lawmakers, how to speak to elected officials, how to organize, how to mobilize, how to build the movement from the bottom up, how to be effective in your community, in your locality. In April, we have our 5th annual Palestine Advocacy Day. This time, we want to bring at least 32 states to Washington. We want to have at least 500 individuals to come and advocate for Palestine. We're not only talking about youth. Over 16 come. Younger than 120 years come. Come and participate. Come and give your voice a voice. Come and be effective. Yes, you will pay for your transportation. You will pay like $150 fee, but what we will pay for you is your accommodation. Each one will cost us $450, each individual that comes. And everyone that comes is a guest and welcomed. Come enjoy Washington, D.C. in April. That's when we have the cherry blossom. Washington, D.C. is a beautiful place. Many of us maybe don't know. Come and give yourself a voice. Empower your cause. Empower yourself. Empower justice. Stand for what is right. Come to Washington, D.C. And if you want to register, right when you exit from this main door, when you exit, just look at your left-hand side. Just look at the booth on your left-hand side. That's our booth. Go and register. Register your children. Come to Washington, D.C. We want everyone to come. If you want to be effective, you want to have an impact, if you want to cause a change, you have to activate yourself. Our booth is outside. When you exit, just look at your left-hand side. That's where our booth. Go register. Ask us what can you do, how you can help. Don't leave without registering, or at least get to know AMP. But think about it seriously. Register your family, register your kids. Join us, inshallah, in our Palestine Advocacy Day to go and advocate for Palestine. Your elected officials have to respect you. It is not a choice. They have to respect you. When you come from a district, they will meet with you, whether they like it or not,
one of our congressmen refused to meet with one of our delegations. We went to storm his office at Capitol Hill. They had to apologize. They met with us and they had to hear it from us. And inshallah, people like that person who doesn't stand for justice, who doesn't stand for what is right, one day we'll hear from our community and from people who stand for justice, people of conscience, because the Palestine movement is not consistent of us as a community, but there is a very broad movement that consistent of Jews, Christian, Muslims, black, whites, Latinos. Everyone is standing for justice. The trend is shifting now. The trend is shifting. We are gaining, they're losing. The public opinions are on our side. The millennials are on our side. Campuses are on our side. They're losing. We're winning. Believe in your cause. And inshallah, 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 Palestine will be free despite Trump, despite Netanyahu, despite anyone who stands for injustice. Wassalamu alaikum.